Hi everyone, I'm Senta. This is the Shakespeare Show. On this episode, I'll be reviewing 5 movie versions of Hamlet. Alright, so I'm going to refer to these movie versions by who plays Hamlet because that's the easiest. Okay, so my number one recommendation for a Hamlet to watch is the Laurence Olivier version. Laurence Olivier also directed this version, and it's in black and white. Now, it's in glorious black and white. The camera work in this is actually really interesting. Number one, the lighting's fantastic, but there's also this way that the camera moves at certain points, and that's really interesting. And when the ghost appears, you hear a heartbeat, like you hear Hamlet's heartbeat, and he starts to get woozy, but the camera also does this thing where it beats with the heartbeat, and I think that's super cool. Which actually reminds me, this is my favorite ghost in all of the Hamlet movies I saw. He's fine looking, but he has a great voice. It's some kind of whisper with an effect on it. I'm going to see if I can put in a clip here.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain time to walk the night.
I also really like the Gertrude in this, and Eileen Hurley plays Gertrude. She's very sympathetic and very likable. And also, Jean Simmons plays Ophelia, and she's not as annoying, and, well, she's not as annoying unless she's histrionic, and all the women in this get a little histrionic. I think it's something, a sign of the times. But an interesting thing is, when Hamlet and Ophelia have their confrontation, Hamlet doesn't throw her about the place. She keeps trying to grab him. He's throwing her arms off, and she throws herself to the ground, which I thought that was a great staging because it made me like Hamlet more. He's also gentler with Gertrude. In terms of Hamlet in general, Olivier is very sensitive. He can go a little stylistically, like poetically melancholy at points, but overall I thought he was very likable, and I related to him maybe more than any of the other Hamlets. Also, he's got some wicked, like platinum blonde hair. This movie's also edited really well in terms of they cut out the Fortinbras and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern stuff that doesn't need to be there. They did move To Be or Not to Be into a different place, and I don't really know how I feel about that. It's one thing to cut things, but when you put things out of sequence, I think it makes a bit of a difference in the meaning. So that's maybe not my favorite thing, but this isn't the only production to do this, so I guess it's something people do a lot. The second Hamlet movie I'm reviewing is the Mel Gibson version. Now, I recommend this movie not necessarily for Mel Gibson's performance, but because it's directed by Franco Zeffirelli, who directed a very famous version of Romeo and Juliet, and boy, does he know what he's doing on the screen. Now, this is a very edited version as well, and what I like that Zeffirelli does here is that they cut out a lot of dialogue, but in the same time, as you might have somebody saying something, instead they have a lot of shots, reaction shots from the different characters. And because of those reaction shots, I feel like it adds a lot of meaning, especially if you're new to the play. And it also makes a lot of stuff connect personally. If you want to just watch a movie and not be like, oh, I need to watch this piece of Shakespeare, this would be the one to watch. The costumes are gorgeous. I actually really like the time period this is set in better than a lot of the other movies, just because I think that the production value is really spectacular. I also like Glenn Close as Gertrude. She plays a really innocent young Gertrude. In fact, she looks like she's the same age as Mel Gibson. And there's a weird incestuous relationship that's going on with them in here, which I don't particularly like. They have like a kiss when they're having their confrontation. I know people play this a lot in Hamlet as the reason why he's so angry at her is because he's also in love with his mother, but I think that's a little bit much. If you're new to Shakespeare, you might find Mel Gibson's performance to be fine in terms of pacing. I found it to be very slow. I felt it was like he was really taking his time with the words, and it just fell flat for me. It just couldn't sustain. It just plodded along. And I prefer my Shakespeare to go a little bit faster, but like I say, if you're new, that might be a plus for you. I really liked Helena Bonham Carter as Ophelia. I thought she did a great job with her craziness and in general, being a very relatable Ophelia. Sometimes it feels like Ophelia is just this idea of this like nymph this girl who just wanders in and out. But I think that when an actress brings a lot of nuance to her, you can feel like she also has a rich inner life. We just aren't allowed to see it. Nathaniel Parker plays Laertes in this, and I thought he was particularly likable. So in a lot of these Hamlets, you're like, Laertes, eh. But in this one, I actually thought, hey, I'm rooting for this guy. I like him. I feel like this could be his story if someone was just telling it from his point of view. Okay, the next version of Hamlet is the Kenneth Branagh version. He is Hamlet. He also directed it. It's the full Hamlet. It's 4 hours long-ish. It's the full Megillah. Now, if you like Fortinbras, you're going to get all the Fortinbras you can handle. But fortunately, Fortinbras is played by Rufus Sewell. So whenever someone's talking about Fortinbras, Kenneth helpfully cuts away to a very moody Rufus Sewell looking like, I'm going to come and get you all. So that makes it a little easier to take. If you don't like to see a lot of dark castles, this is the Hamlet for you because the production design is very light. It's set in a period that's not as old as some of the other Hamlets, and so the costumes and the castle are a little different. In terms of the Hamlet, Kenneth Branagh obviously is a skilled Shakespearean actor. This isn't my favorite Hamlet, mostly because he's really violent, and as I've discussed, I don't like that. But I love Kenneth Branagh. The cast is packed with actors. You've got Kate Winslet as Ophelia. You've got Julie Christie as Gertrude. Derek Jacobi as Claudius, and he famously played Hamlet on the stage, and he also is Hamlet in another movie I'm going to review. You've got Richard Briers as Polonius. He's fine. Nothing either way. But I really did like Horatio, which is played by Nicholas Farrell. I thought he was very likable. Normally Horatios don't really stand out, but this one I thought, yeah, I like this guy. He's a good best friend. Cameos in this film include Brian Blessed as the ghost. Now, you might not know who Brian Blessed is, but I love him. He makes me happy whenever I see him on screen. He's got the best face ever, and the best voice. Billy Crystal as the gravedigger, Charlton Heston as the leader of the players, and I have to say I really liked him in this, and Rufus Sewell, as I said, as Fortinbras. You also have Jack Lemmon, just people popping up all over the place, full of actors you know. The next movie is the Derek Jacobi version. Now, this one was done for BBC Time Life Films. It's part of a collection of, they did all of Shakespeare's plays, and you might be able to find it at your library. Now, this is a bit more like a filmed play for me, because they're on a sound stage, and also the pitch of the acting is a little bit more towards the stage than towards the cinema. But Derek Jacobi is he's a fine Hamlet, but for my money he gets a little too big and histrionic in certain sections. That's just my personal taste. Obviously the man knows what he's doing. Claire Bloom is in this. She is well known for playing Shakespeare in general. Patrick Stewart is in this, and I love him in everything, and he's well known for playing Shakespeare, but also just for being awesome. So he plays Claudius, so whenever he's on the screen, it's a treat. And then I also really love Polonius, played by Eric Porter, who I have never seen in anything, but he is just adorable because he looks like Bryan Cranston, and also just where he puts Polonius in this is exactly where I like to see Polonius. I was like, I could see Polonius the movie after seeing his Polonius, but only if it stars Eric Porter. Polonius! I don't know how other people feel about him, and I guess he's supposed to be, like, not a great character in terms of he causes a bunch of trouble, but I just... he's such a busybody, and in fact, when Hamlet kills him, he says something like, "That's what comes from being too busy!" And I think the reason I like this character is because it's terrible. I'm kind of a nosy person. I see myself in him. Now, the final movie I'm reviewing is the Ethan Hawke version, and I just don't think this is Hamlet. I don't recommend this movie. They took Hamlet and they put it in modern times. That's not a problem, really. They made Denmark, the Denmark Corporation. Hamlet goes around in like a little hat and is watching videos he made of Ophelia and cutting them together. But the problem with this is that they cut it weirdly, and I actually don't think that you can fully understand this if you don't already know the story of Hamlet. For instance, the play is now a movie. the movie's just a series of images juxtaposed, but they don't actually tell the story of the murder of a king. There's like some pornographic images and like image of an old king. So it tells the story of the incest part, but it doesn't tell the story of the murder. And Claudius doesn't really have a reason to look guilty because everybody knows he's married to Gertrude. So that doesn't make any sense. There's a lot of people you probably know in this movie, but that's not a good reason to go see it. Don't see this film. If you're looking to see Hamlet, I don't recommend it. But there is a good thing. They have a clip of a very famous Buddhist monk talking about to be and what it means to be and to be in the context of other people. But so you don't have to see this movie, I've put a link to that clip in the description area below. So those are the 5 movies I saw. If you see any of them, or you've seen any of them, feel free to let me know which ones you like. The next episode, I will be doing the To Be or Not to Be soliloquy, which is the most famous speech from Hamlet. So watch it. I'll see you then.